Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. I know we just barely made it out of Strixhaven week, but I couldn't resist going back to school to answer some questions about everybody's new favorite patient professor, Ruxa. I got a lot of questions already asking how this card works with various other different circumstances. Rather than make different videos about all of them, I'm trying something new, and making one video that gives the answer to every Ruxa situation that I could come up with. So, strap yourselves in everyone, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Now, first thing we're going to look at is tokens. Let's say we have a mascot exhibition. What will happen? Well, obviously the 2/1 creature has flying, so we know it's not getting any kind of buff, but the other ones will. Being a token by itself isn't an ability, which means that the other creature tokens that were generated by mascot exhibition will be no ability creatures and will get the buff from Ruxa just fine. The same thing is true about being a commander. If you're a commander, that also doesn't count by itself as an ability. So if the commander doesn't have any abilities naturally, then it will be something that Ruxa can affect. The next important thing to note is that any ability will disqualify you from getting buffed by Ruxa, even if the ability isn't doing anything or isn't relevant at that time. So for example, if you had a Barkhide Mauler that was on the battlefield, well, even though cycling doesn't do anything on the battlefield, it still does something, which is keep you from getting helped by Ruxa. Or, for another example, imagine a face-up Treespring Lorien. Even though Morph doesn't do anything when the creature is face-up, that doesn't matter, it's still an ability. On the other hand, if Treespring Lorien is face-down, the game rules define it as having no abilities, so that means it will get the bonuses. Now, there's no way for it to be face-down in your graveyard, but at least on the battlefield, that's something you should be aware of. Okay, so the game rules helped us out in that last situation, but they can hurt us too. For example, what do you think about this card, Dryad Arbor? Does Dryad Arbor have any abilities? Well, if you look at this printing of it, you might think the answer is no. However, this one makes things a little bit more clear. The reminder text spells out that it does have the ability tap add green to your mana pool, and that's something that the game rules give it. Any forest has that ability innately, whether it has it printed on the card or not. Now, another thing that's interesting to look at with Dryad Arbor is its color indicator. Color indicators by themselves aren't abilities. However, if you have something like a Transguild Courier, that has a characteristic defining ability that gives it its colors, not a color indicator, and that's a big difference. As suggested by the name, a characteristic defining ability is an ability, so it won't get any help from Ruxa at all. Finally, I wanted to cover some other situations where a creature that otherwise would have no abilities might be getting some kind of buffs, either from counters, or from enchantments, or from other stuff acting on it. Let's take a look at exactly which of these will and will not interact with Ruxa. So let's say for all of these examples we have a Grizzly Bears, a creature that normally has no abilities. Now, if you've got Grizzly Bears with some +1/+1 counters on it, well that's good news. +1/+1 counters are not an ability, so it'll work just fine. On the other hand, ability counters, as the name suggests, do give an ability, which means that Grizzly Bears will not be considered to have no abilities if it has an ability counter on it. Another thing that you want to take a look at really carefully is auras. Specifically, some auras give abilities to the things that they enchant, and others don't give abilities but kind of look like they should. Be careful to look for the word has or gains. These are the words that the effects will use if they're actually giving an ability to the enchanted permanent. So let's take a look for some practice, shall we? Let's start out with Aqueous Form. Does that give the enchanted creature any abilities? At first glance, it might seem like it should. However, can't be blocked is not an ability that it's giving to the creature. Rather, it's just a true statement about that creature. Also, you can see that it has another thing that gives you some extra value whenever you attack with that creature. But that's an ability that the Aqueous Form has. It's not an ability that the Aqueous Form gives to the enchanted creature. So what would it look like if it wouldn't work? Well, how about something like Vow of Wilderness? If you have a Vow of Wilderness, it starts out looking like it should be okay. Getting +3/+3, that's no problem. Can't attack you or a planeswalker you control? Well, that's not a problem for anything so far. However, when you get to the part where it gets trample, that does use the word has or gains, and therefore that will count as the creature that's enchanted getting that ability. And that's a no-go for Ruxa. Finally, one last point. If your creature has some abilities already, don't fret. There might still be some hope. If you can make the creature lose those abilities, like for example with Colossus Hammer, then the creature will be happily ability free and Ruxa will be able to give it some special attention. Whew, I just barely made it. Thanks for patiently bearing with me while I went through all of these situations. Are there any cool Ruxa interactions that I missed? Let me know in the comments. Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.